Hello, happy Monday to you. This is Sandra coming to you live from Queens, New York. And I just want to say happy Monday. Today's a great day in New York. I had a fabulous weekend. I think I was outside for the whole weekend. I just spent the whole weekend just enjoying the warm. The not so warm. It was like 80 degrees. So it wasn't so bad. It was no rain. So it was just a beautiful day to spend outside. So I'm Sandra Morris. I am the admin for I Do in the Caribbean Facebook group, where I invite couples into the group who are looking to plan a destination wedding in the Caribbean or Mexico, and just share information with them that is relevant to planning a destination wedding in a foreign country. So today's topic is near and dear to me. It's group room contract. Should you get a group room contract? And it's really all depends on how many people you're going to have at your wedding, because the more people you have, the better a group room contract will be, because there's so many benefits that comes with having a room contract. So let me just start walking you through that. So the first thing is that I actually had my destination wedding in Jamaica about now almost 6 years ago. So in 2015, I invited 100 family members and friends to my vow renewal in Jamaica in 2015. So I had over 100 people. I had a group room contract. Not everyone that came to my wedding actually stayed in the resort that I had my wedding. So that is also something that you need to consider. Like when you have a group contract, not everyone's going to book within that contract. And what happens when you have guests that don't book into that room contract? It impacts the benefits you get from having the group contract, and also it adds additional cost to you, because for each person who are not staying on the resort, you have to pay for them to get on the resort and still pay for them to attend your wedding. So that's something to think about. So this was, I think we did a catamaran cruise right after the wedding. So this was my thank you to my guests for coming so far. I did a cruise and we all enjoyed like a catamaran cruise. Also, as I said, it all depends on the number of people that's coming to your wedding. This is my wedding, and it was just the two of us, just my husband and I. And we retied a knot again in Grenada 2 years later. So at that point, I got the destination wedding bug. I wanted to see what it's like if just two people got married. So we exchanged vows again in Grenada 2 years later. So for group of 10 or less, I would say you probably don't need a group room contract, because there's only like 5 rooms that you're booking. So you don't really need a contract. So let me start by saying, now that, as I said, when you're thinking about a group contract, you've already picked your destination, you picked your resort or venue, and you've selected your wedding date. So now you want to secure rooms for your wedding. So, I just said, this is a question you're going to ask. Do I want a contracted group room, or do I want a flexible group? So what's the difference between that? So for a flexible group, the guests get to pay at their own pace, meaning that you're not holding any rooms for them. When they're ready to book a room, they book a room, make their deposit. Whatever the price is at the time that they're booking, that's the price that they're going to get. So for the couple, there is no stress, because you're not worried about, them paying for their room or anything like that. You just tell them that I'm getting married at this resort. This is the time this is the day I'm getting married, and they book a room according to what their budget is and to how long they want to stay. So that's stress-free. But the risk also to the couple is that you don't know who's booking, because you have no way of tracking who has booked a room, who hasn't booked a room, unless the guest tells you. So it's very hard to track when people just book on their own. You can't manage that process very well and keeping track of who booked and who didn't book. But a flexible group is definitely good for a small group. If it's only 5 of you, you can definitely control that. If you're inviting 5 couples or 10 people to come and they're booking, they can say, yes, I booked my room. This is the dates I'm coming. So that's easy to manage. So for a flexible group, as I said, you don't have to go with a contract. It all depends on which resort it is. You could get a group code, and when people book, they use that code so they can tie those rooms together. So this is a group, and they're using that group code. But there's no deposit required from the couple standpoint, and the liability for paying their room is strictly on the guests booking their rooms and paying for them. So that is what with a flexible group. So as I said, the risk of a flexible group, though, is that because you don't have any rooms being held, the prices can be higher or lower. It all depends on when someone books their room. So as I said, the price can change at any time and it could be higher. So that is one of, I would say, the risk of having a flexible group. The other thing is the rooms could be sold out, meaning that because you're not holding any rooms and people want to book, like if the wedding is in 60 days and they're booking 60 days before your wedding, there could be no room available and the hotel could be sold out. So that's one of the disadvantages of a flexible group, is that you want people to book by a certain time so they'll have their room reserved. Sometimes I've seen this happen before. The guests book the wrong resort. When you don't tell them where, even if you tell them which resort you're going to be in, there's so many resorts in like, especially in Mexico. There's so many Dreams in Mexico. If you tell them Dreams Resort and you're not specific, they could book the wrong resort and be in the wrong resort for your wedding. So, the next thing I said, guests waiting until the last minute to book. So you don't know, because within 60 days, you need to have your, to pay the balance for your wedding. So you need to know how many people have booked. So not knowing if your guests have booked, if they're booking late, it just causes stress also, not knowing, when they book, how many people have booked, to determine how many people is going to be there for your wedding. And as I said, a flexible group is great if it's under 10 people or under 10 rooms. It's just easier to manage because it's less rooms and less people to deal with. So for a group room contract, these are some of the basics of that. It's a signed contract. You're going to sign a contract with either the resort or with me, because I have to sign a contract with the vendor that I'm going to use to get these rooms. And by signing the contract, you're saying that I'm going to be responsible for these rooms. So if I'm having a wedding, I know there's going to be 30 to 40 people. Maybe I'll have a group room contract for 15 rooms. Got to be 15 rooms. I know that at least 15 people will have a room. Most time you don't want to overestimate, but it all depends on the resort. You could overestimate and reduce the room before you are in any penalty, but just to make sure you have rooms available. So it's a signed contract. So it's legally binding. You're going to be responsible because you're going to be the one the couple normally is the one that signed the contract to have the rooms. And the good thing about it is going to be for a certain number of rooms at a fixed rate. The good thing about a room contract also, if you go online and you see the room category that you want, like most brides want a 1-bedroom, they want an ocean view, they want a swim-out room, they want one of the best rooms, which are very limited in inventory. Within a group room contract, you can stipulate the types of room you want. If you want to hold 5 ocean view rooms, 5 tropical rooms, 1 governor suite, a 1-bedroom swim out, you can actually stipulate the type of rooms you want to be held in a contract based on what you think your guests are going to want. So you'll have almost the specific room that you want in the room category. So that's the good thing about having a group contract. You can actually, if it's available at the time you sign the contract, that you can actually hold the rooms you want for your wedding, especially for the couple. I always tell a couple, try to select one of the best rooms, like a honeymoon rooms, because those are one of the best rooms for people getting married to stay in. And those are the rooms that are going to go first if people are going to start booking them. It's going to require a deposit. From what I've seen, most of the room contracts that I've been doing, the deposit, depending if it's under 25 room, it can be as much as $500, or as little as $500, or as much as $100 per room. So I just did a contract. It was 20 rooms. That deposit was $500. I just did another room contract and it was 35 rooms and it was $100 a room. So the deposit on that was $3,500. So there's a difference between what the deposit might be for the room. So that's something for the couple to think about. Can they afford to put that money up front to secure the rooms for their guests? The good thing is that money will come back to you. It can either be used towards your room or you get it refunded back on your card. So you don't lose the money. The money is just to secure and hold the rooms until your guests are ready to book. So that's one of the things about group contract. The benefit, depending on the resort and the vendor you book through, because I book through a specific vendor when I request group room contract, you can get free rooms. A lot of the resorts that I'm booking, for every 5th room, you get the 6th one free. So that is definitely a perk for the couple. That money could be used towards their room and it could be refunded back on their credit card. There's like free upgrades, like for every 6th room or 10th room you book, you can upgrade one room to the next category, depending if it's available at the time. So those are very good perks that couple can get when you're thinking about a group room contract and what's the benefit of having it. Free events. I've seen these contracts that have a free, if you book over 10 rooms, you get a free cocktail hour. So that could be used towards as your welcome cocktail for your wedding. So instead of paying out of pocket for a cocktail, to welcome all your guests, the group contract could have that in there for you, and that will save you money. Or you can have like a semi-private dinner, which could be a rehearsal dinner. So most of the resorts are saying you can get a semi-private dinner up to 40 people if you book over 10 rooms, and the people actually book the room. So these are some benefits that you can get in having a group contract. You can get discount on spa up to like 20% for your group that you can use the spa and get a 20% discount. Free flight credit. Let me clarify that. Some vendors that I book with are offering up to $1,000 in flight credits if the couple, within the group contract, they book over 75 room nights. And what I mean by 75 room nights is if, say you have you book 20 rooms at 3 nights, that's 60 room nights. It's 20 rooms times 3 nights, that's 60. So that's how we calculate the room nights. So figure if you book 25 rooms times 3 nights, that's 75 rooms. So that could qualify you for $1,000 towards the couple's flight. The caveat is that if there's any free rooms in that, we have to deduct the nights that are free. So you have to book really way over 75 room nights to qualify for that. But that is $1,000 that the couple could save for their flights. If they get a group contract and it's big enough and they book enough rooms or book enough nights that they can qualify for that. The good thing about the contract also is the rates are fixed, meaning that if you block out a 4-night stay and somebody wants to stay 7 nights, the pre rates and the post rates are most times the same rate. So you're not paying more if you want to come for extra days. So that's a good thing that the rates are fixed and it's not going to change throughout the contract. Room availability. Because you secure these rooms for your group, the rooms are going to be available for them to book before the final payment date. So until they're ready to book, the rooms will be there and there won't be any rooms, they'll have a room blocked for them until they're ready to book their room. It's easier to track your guest booking. Like for me, when I do group contracts for my couple, I try to tell them or give them updates. This many people have booked, these many people have booked, this is how many rooms you have left. So I keep track. They'll know who has booked, how long they're coming in. So I keep track of that, so they'll know who has booked already. So when they're making the wedding plans, they'll know, all right, I have 30 guests that booked already. Either I'm going to do the wedding for 30 or 40, depending on how many people book, but at least they will know who already has booked their rooms. The risk of a contracted group. The deposit has to be made by the group leader or the couple if you're doing a contracted room, because it requires you to hold the room. So you have to put a deposit down. One of the other risks is if you block off 15 rooms, but only 10 rooms get booked, what is the risk to that? It could be that the couple could be liable for that if the rooms that they blocked off were not booked. And I kind of work with the couples on these group contracts to make sure they understand what are the concessions and the cancellation policy, so they know when to release rooms so they're not liable for anything. For the group, the minimum nights for each room is 3 nights. So people have to book 3 nights in order to be part of the group contract. And most likely the minimum rooms for the contract is at least 10 rooms. And one of the other risks is that you block off 10 rooms, but you have guests that book outside the contract, and that is always it doesn't help. It's not helpful if they don't book within the group contract. You don't get credit for the room that they book outside. So that's something you want to make sure that you tell your guests that they have to book through whomever you have designated as the person you have the contract with, to keep everyone within the contract. So that's something that I see happen a lot, and the guests book outside the contract. This is one thing I was explaining. The couple must understand within the contract what is the attrition and the cancellation policy, that makes a big difference because the couple could be liable for unbooked rooms. So let me explain what that means. Attrition means when you can release the rooms that you've held without any penalty. And when I do a contract within there, it'll tell you you have to release the room by day 67 before the wedding. Otherwise, you might be in penalty. So I kind of keep the couples up to date as to how many rooms are booked, how many rooms do we have left in inventory, and when do we have to give up these rooms so you're not held liable for any of these unbooked rooms. So that's the attrition. Also, the cancellation. Most group contract within 35 or 37 days before travel dates, the group will be in full penalty. Meaning, if anyone cancels their room within that time frame, they're 100% in penalty, meaning that they're not going to get their money back. That's something very important that people need to understand, that when we're doing this contract, the rooms are contracted and there is a penalty clause in there if they cancel within a certain period, that they won't get their money back. So I always insist that people get travel insurance on the rooms just in case something should happen, because people don't realize that you can't say COVID is a reason why you can't travel. Resorts are not giving money backs anymore. So that's something you have to think about. But for me, if you're having over 20 people, 30 people or more attend your wedding, I think it's a good idea to have a group contract, because the benefits, I think, outweighs the risk of not getting one. The fact that you're having 15 to 20 rooms booked for your wedding, you want to make sure those rooms are available for when your guests are ready to book. So having the contract gives you that flexibility of holding these rooms for your guests until they're ready to book. And I said before, it's important that they get travel insurance, because that's the only way they're going to protect their investment. And if they have to cancel, they can get a refund on their room. So that, to me, is a very important thing. So some tips I would say is, if you're getting a group contract, do not give out the specific name of the resort too early, because I've seen this already. You announce that you're getting married. You tell, I'm getting married in Mexico at this resort. And all of a sudden people start booking without even telling you that they're booking their room. They just go out and book. So they're not going to be in your contract room if they go out and book on their own. So you want to make sure people stay within the contract. So I always say, put the fear in them, meaning that fear of missing out, FOMO. Like, if you don't book within the group, you're not going to know what's going on. I won't know you're coming to the wedding. So everyone has to book to the group or book with my travel advisor, Sandra, because she's the one, coordinating all the room booking for me. If you book outside that, I can't help you. You're not going to be part of the group. So you definitely want to point them in the right direction and tell them that they must book here and book through this person to be part of your group. So that's what I would have to say about some of the tips into making sure, because the real big issue with contracted group is people booking outside the contract, and then you're not having enough rooms booked because people are booking on their own and not following your direction. So you really have to give them specific, clear direction so they know that they need to book within the group. Otherwise, they're not part of your wedding. I see a lot of people, they show up and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know you're coming. Oh, I wanted to surprise you. You don't want surprises at your destination wedding when you're there. You want people to tell you ahead of time that they're coming, because also, most of the payments for the group contract is due between 60 to 67 days before travel. So all final payments need to be made by then. And that's when you're going to get the head count so you can pay for your wedding. So you need to know who has booked. So you know a number. Is it 30, 35? So when you finalize your wedding details, you're paying for 35 people to attend your wedding. And the other tip I would say is never pay for 35. I would pay for 30. And then when you get there, if 35 people actually shows up, you pay that difference. Because if you pay for 35 and only 30 shows up, you're not going to get any refunds. So nobody's giving back a refund. So always underestimate your payment for your wedding, because you don't want to overpay and then people don't show up and you lose that money, because you're not going to get that money back. So that's a tip I would say is, based on the number of people booked you'll know by 60 days before your wedding, all that should be finalized, because all the group contracts, payments have to be made by then. So then you'll know how many people are booked to come to your wedding, and then you can finalize your wedding details based on that number. So that is all the information I have for you on group contracts. If you have any other specific questions on, group contracts, trying to understand what they are, what does attrition mean, what does cancellation mean, those are the very key points within the contract. You want to know what those dates are and make sure you release rooms before the attrition date, and also what the cancellation policy is and when it becomes non-refundable, so the guests can know that, once you pass this date, it's non-refundable. So the best thing for people to do is get travel insurance so they can protect their investment. Next week, I'm going to talk about something else with destination wedding. Do you need a wedding website? How do you ensure that your guest stays within the group contract? Or how do you make sure your guests know where you're going to get married? How do you send information to your guests? Also, if you're within this group and you're looking to have a destination wedding and you need help planning, I'm available. You can reach out to me or schedule a consultation. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. So until next time, I'll see you next Monday with another live on something around destination wedding. Bye for now.